All right, I will call to order a regular meeting of the Wellington Board of Selectmen. It is Monday, May 2nd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. If you will join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next, before I move into the next item, I will mention, so we are in person today because the legislation that allows us to continue hybrid meetings. We were not aware that the governor had signed the bill before Friday afternoon. So not having that information, we scheduled strictly an in-person. So it did get signed. So we are able to go back to the hybrid format after today. So unless there's an objection by either of you, we'll continue in the hybrid manner.
How long does that last?
It does not have a sunset. So this new legislation removed the sunset date and included some new language regarding budget, annual meetings and budget meetings for regional school districts.
Okay.
So as far as what we've been doing, the way we've been conducting business, nothing has changed. It allows us to continue now. Theoretically, yes. So, yeah, so this one was, you can see it was warned at 1:52. I held out as close to 2 o'clock as we could. And so we'll move forward.
Motion to add something to new business when it's an appropriate time.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to add something for new business, town meeting discussion. I just as an outside new person, I just have some observations I'd like to discuss. We could put it at the end of new business.
so you're proposing item G of new business?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So the motion is to add item G, town meeting discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, approval of minutes. You'll see we have several minutes in your packets. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes from March 20, special meeting minutes from March 21st, 23rd, April 7th, and April 14th as presented.
Oh, so one big.
I did the special meetings in one lump,
Okay, second.
unless there's an objection. Any discussion?
So all the special meetings
Correct.
approved.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, so that leaves us with 2 regular meeting minutes, April 4th and then April 18th. There a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve April 4th and April 18th,
I'll second for discussion.
regular meeting minutes.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the April 4th and April 18th regular meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, present to speak. If there's anyone who's joined us who would like to speak, I ask you to state your name for the record and limit yourself to 2 minutes. Is there anyone present to speak? Yes.
Matthew Clark, 42 Burt Lathan Road, Wellington, Connecticut. I would respectfully ask that the first selectman stop talking over Mr. Buell when it's time to talk. I know you're going to disagree with me, but I've watched you do it repeatedly over and over. But just practice good manners and just let him finish, and then you can disagree. I've watched it. Go back, look at the tape. So please do that. Act respectfully to all the other selectmen. Thank you.
Is there anyone else present to speak? All right, there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. There is a list of correspondence in your packet. What I'll tell you is not in a written correspondence is that we have since discovered as we've been dealing with the speeding issue, that we have both a new liaison at Troop C and there is a new head of Troop C that seems to change often. So oftentimes they send us a formal correspondence when there's a new commanding officer, but we haven't seen that yet. Do you know his name, Kelsey?
I know the new liaison is struck off.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen the new commanding officer, but I just thought I'd mention that. All right, so I'll move into selectmen's meeting, selectmen's updates. The steep grant, we thought we were all set with the contract. We've signed it, but the Attorney General's office needs some slight corrections, so we're waiting for DPH to get it back to us, that version to sign. So we'll keep you posted. Again, trying to get that project done so that it doesn't affect the use of the green for, at the very least, the car show and the flea market in September and October. So we'll keep you posted. School Building Committee will meet again this Wednesday, May 4th. That will be a hybrid meeting. And so this will be the first hybrid meeting that they've had in some time. I think in the past we've had one, so it'll be upstairs this Wednesday at 6:30. Lotseth, the design RFP went out. And the lights went out, thank you. And so that should be back in the next couple of weeks. So that we will then be looking to award a contract to do the design work. The truck lease is, we're still waiting on the F-350, which is the Public Works Director vehicle. We still don't have any new information for a build date. Just so you all know, we've been working to find out what the situation is at Ford, and it is well beyond the dealer that we are using. We actually went to another dealer to have discussions, and we've heard of individuals having their orders canceled. So we kind of sit back and hope that doesn't happen, because the cost is significantly higher than what we had locked into. So we'll keep it posted. The ARPA Commission met today. We heard one additional project from the Historical Society. We asked them to come back with some new information. Also, one of the things that has come up is there was a project from Parks and Rec that was to put lighting around the track, as well as fixing some drainage issues. The costs for that have increased significantly. The sticker shock we heard today was shocking. So we've asked them to bring us a little bit more information from the town engineer before we move that on to public hearing. But the next public hearing, which will hear several items, will be on Tuesday, May 24th at 6:30 p.m. So look for a warning regarding that. As of today, Friday, some things came up in this building, some maintenance issues. So today, Troy met with some contractors out here. We had to replace the hot water tank in the basement. And in order to that, put in a 30 amp breaker. I'll let Troy speak to those after. And we had to replace the motor and the air handler that's in the basement. We do not know what these expected costs will be. I believe our maintenance budget will handle them. If it's significantly over, you will hear from me, but they're not repairs that could not be done. They had to be done. Our town clerk actually began to notice on her side of the office a burning smell. And it was the motor in the air handler going. So when he opened it up, they could smell that today. So in the 30 amp breaker
was the new water heater needed a 30 amp breaker instead of a 20 amp breaker. So the electrician came today and put a new 30 amp breaker.
And on that note, as you can all see here, and the selectmen are aware, Troy Sposato has returned to his former role as Public Works Director. So things have a way of working out. We had not filled the position yet, and I think the town will benefit from Troy staying with us. So we're happy to have him back. Michael Fitz-Cordova, who was our account analyst, he joined us in January, has now been promoted to the personnel and payroll coordinator. So began in that role on Thursday. So that will leave his position open. And so we you'll see that advertised externally now. We had to open to internal candidates as it's a union position. And no one from the union was interested. So now it will go out. And the assistant transfer station operator position is in the interview process. Thanks. All right, COVID-19, as I'm sure you're all aware, there's been an uptick in COVID cases across the state. And we're seeing a lot of that in New England. We have had, since our last meeting, we've had 13 cases. not hearing of any severe illness in our area. We are in the red area in the state, and that shows that we have a 17.1 cases per 100,000. At our last meeting, we were at 7.3. So there's no longer a daily average, there's a running 7-day average. And so we'll just keep an eye on it. And once again, we ask people to just, if you're sick, stay home and just be conscious of. And if you haven't been vaccinated, consider getting your vaccinations. Any comments or questions?
No, thank you.
All right, Public Works. So minus the 8 business days, Troy wasn't with us. What's happening over there?
We're sweeping the roads, so that's continuing. We've cleaned the garage, roadside mowing, still going on different days. Most of the dirt roads have been graded. There's still a few that we're just waiting with the weather. That comes up. We installed the voting signs this week for the upcoming budget vote there tomorrow. We installed the new stop sign on Red Oak. Seems to be a hotspot. They keep kind of taking that stop sign, so that's one of those things. We cleaned up some town trees on the green there that somebody cut. We loomed around the wells at the senior center to be in compliance with something Whitewater does. So we had to, there's a couple things we had to do there.
Because of our water system.
Water system. We cleaned up catch basins, we've been cleaning waterways. That's kind of what we've been doing.
Any Public Works questions?
How much does a stop sign cost?
$30.
$30.
Yep.
And you've replaced a few from one.
I've replaced probably 5 or 6 there.
Wow.
They're taking the sign and everything. The pole, we had to replace the whole pole, and the street sign like that says Red Oak is about $75.
Does that one come down or just?
So, yeah, they took that, they took the whole thing. the last
People are
time.
taking it, not taking it
And it's
out.
just,
Yeah,
It's
are
not
they
getting
just
out.
unbolting it from the post?
No, they're taking literally the whole post.
That's
Post.
bananas.
Because I know you can get hardware that,
Yeah, no, we have
Tightens.
hardware that's, yeah, like it breaks off, so you can't like.
so you
You
can
have
tighten
to
the
cut it
hose
off.
and that you can't,
Yeah, you can't take it off. no.
doesn't matter, take them all.
Just take the whole
They're
post
taking
and
the
it
whole
alleviates
post.
that problem.
Yeah. and taking it, so, I don't know,
That's
it's-
actually cheap though, too, because they used to be $45.
Yeah. So the pole, the sign, you're all said and done, you're probably looking at close to $200 by the time. you're set it up.
And it's specifically that one.
Yep.
Interesting.
Interesting. Anything else? All right, thank you, Troy. All right, item A, old business. I am happy to be able to publicly talk about the current employee, union employees contract, the CBA that we negotiated on behalf of the town. It was ratified by both the union and by the board, and it was finalized and signed last Tuesday, the 26th. So the 3-year contract is effective July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2024. It includes a 2.2% wage increase in year 1, that's the current year we're in, and a 2.75% increase in years 2 and 3. In addition, we added a prescription copay carve out. So it's, make sure I read it to you right. It's $525.40 in year 2. So in July, that will go into place. Make sure I get those numbers right. Yes. So $525.40 is that carve out. That will begin then. We made some additions to the holiday list, thus the next item on our agenda. So we added Juneteenth, which is the newest federal holiday, to the list of holidays. The insurance, we increased the insurance waiver to $1,200 for full-time employees, and then an increase in the boot allotments to our public works staff from $200 to $300. And in addition, 2 positions were removed from the bargaining unit. That's the Parks and Rec Director and the zoning agent are no longer union members. And so I, appreciate certainly both board members were part of the negotiations and helping me with the very uncomfortable dance around the specifics during a budget season. It's not a good place to be. I hope we wrap this up before then. But what we did, and as you both know, we did budget using these numbers. So we're not going back looking for any adjustments. We factored in the current wage increase and the one beginning July 2nd into the budget. Any comments or questions about the CBA? All right, so that brings us to item B, discussing the holidays, specifically day by selectmen. Now that it's ratified, we need to adjust our current holiday schedule. We had, as a board, chosen June 20th as day by selectmen. That is the date in which Juneteenth would be celebrated. And that's why we chose it as day by selectmen, but now that it's an actual holiday, we need to choose another day.
Did we kept the day by selectmen? I thought we
Yes,
eliminated that.
no, we
Okay.
kept day by selectmen.
All right.
And added Juneteenth.
Got it.
So I am suggesting August 22nd, which is a Monday, as day by selectmen. So I'll make the motion to move day by selectmen to Monday, August 22nd.
Second.
Discussion. If this is kind of throw a dart at the calendar. And sometimes we'll book in with another holiday. There were none in August. So I worked with the finance office to make sure it didn't contradict with anything they had going on. And so this was determined to be a good day. So there were no holidays in August. Every other month had a holiday. Thus I picked this one.
That's how you got it.
That's really, it was looking at the calendar and seeing where we'd put another holiday without doubling up on an already existing holiday. And August had nothing. So we went towards the end of the month. So it didn't interfere with work happening at the end of the fiscal year. So, yeah, just a random day.
I've seen others, organizations look at it and say, well, if your holiday falls on a Tuesday or a Thursday, then you take your floating holiday, it's either Monday or Friday. That's one.
Well, so day by selectmen is a day we choose.
Yeah, this sounds
Yeah,
fine to me, I guess.
so, yeah, and just picked, and a Monday, trying not to pick a selectmen's meeting Monday or other meetings. So it really is a shot in the dark. So,
Fine with me. My daughter's birthday, so. we can-
oh, excellent. So we'll celebrate.
that,
There was,
yes.
that is why. All right. So if there's no other discussion on the motion, I will call for a vote to approve August 22nd as the new day by selectmen. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, speeding on town roads. So I was hoping to have a little bit more of the data collected from the speed signs. But the data that the sign, and these are the signs that were given to us by the state.
No, these are the signs we purchased.
These are the signs are they the signs we purchased? These are the ones,
The school, yes.
right, yeah. So I hope to have more specific data, and then I will be sharing that data with Troop C. But in the meantime, I had, I think I told you all, I had already reached out to the troop, sent them a formal request, and they have been doing more speed enforcement. So the response we got from the troop was speed enforcement's being conducted regularly on Village Hill, Schofield, Spac, St. Moritz Circle, and Willington Hill roads. The statistics from the town, again, I hope to have the April data today, but we didn't get it from the troop. But they did indicate that the infractions in both March and April have more than doubled within the town since February. Written warnings have increased significantly in March and April, indicating significantly more traffic stops in town have been occurring. So I'm meeting with our new liaison on Friday. So I look forward to having a face-to-face conversation with him on this matter. This is how we knew we had new folks over there when we sent the request in. It took some time to get to our new liaison. And so when I have the data from the signs, we'll be able to show them that. I can tell you on the upper Village Hill section, closer to the Stafford line, it's been clocked as high as 67,
74.
74.
That's like even fast for the highway.
Yeah,
That's
in the
pretty nice.
mornings and then around 4 in the
You're all
afternoon.
over the place there, they're always hopping.
Forget about the deer, there's people. There's
Yeah.
people on the
People,
roads,
yeah.
there are people that
Dogs.
walk on that
Yeah.
road. There's absolutely no
I know, I was gonna
reason.
say with their dogs.
Right. And so these are the kinds of things we want to show that they have been up there for some time and we're still
Yeah.
seeing those significant peaks. And so that those data points will be able to be shared with the troops so they can see when it's occurring the most, and hopefully they can assist us with that. So we'll continue this conversation with them, and once again, ask folks to, slow down and be mindful of their speed. Any comments, questions, anything you want to see done?
It's startling, that number.
Yes.
That's really startling. And, living right off of Village Hill, I've seen it. Like, there have been times I've pulled out onto Village Hill and there wasn't a car there when I turned, and then all of a sudden there's somebody, right on my bumper. I'm angry that I'm going the speed limit. So, but I did see speed patrol at least
Good.
once in the last week,
It's good to
down
know.
at the bottom of the hill, sort of in the parking area by the river
Mhm.
on the highway. I did see a police car doing speed patrol there. So that was good to see.
Troy, the signs are as you come from Stafford?
Yep.
Have you
so-
turned them around the other way yet?
No, we haven't turned them around.
So most of those speeds, and I'm not saying they are Stafford residents, I'm just merely using that for reference, they're coming out of Stafford. So at one point, we will turn around to try to catch data going in that other direction, and see if it alters the times we're seeing. And they were startling enough when we saw these on Route 32 in front of Hall School, but on such a residential road, oftentimes that sign will slow people down. It's not.
So we have one on Village Hill. Where's the other one?
There's one on Village Hill, there's one on Penny Hill.
Oh,
Excuse me. Yeah, on Caesar.
Caesar.
Yes. And the one on Penny Hill and the one on Caesar are the ones that were given us by the state. And they did their traffic studies, so they wanted them to be put there for like 3 or 4 months to collect data. And then we can move them wherever, but they had specific spots that.
They're
they
using
had.
them first, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So then we can move them, around or whatnot, but they asked if we could leave them there for a certain amount of time. Because that's where the most of their speeding was in town, I guess, or traffic.
We had a lot of complaints and concerns from those
Yeah.
areas.
Right, so we'll keep having this ongoing discussion, and hopefully by the next time we meet, again, I'm meeting this week with our liaison from Troop C, so we'll have more information for you at our next meeting. And we'll just keep talking about the topic and see what else we can do.
It's just a good point too. We need to be continuing to reach out to the state police, just
Absolutely.
because of the turnover.
So I will tell you, this is the first time in a while that we've gotten the response, we will be out there to do this, as opposed to, we'll see what we can do when we can fit it in. I don't want to think it's because we had a fatality on 320 in a very serious accident on Village Hill, but something has made their accessibility to us a little more open, and so I'll take it. But this is, the most positive response we've gotten in some time. So we're continuously talking with them and working with them. Those in the back row, just keep moving your arms high.
Can we move that down a little bit?
The two in the
Like maybe
corner
throw a
who were
switch
the
or
last to
something.
touch it are gonna work on fixing
Come on,
it. They put a new battery. It never had a problem. They put a new battery in it and it like self-adjusted itself. I don't know.
That's bananas.
But- All right, so I will move on to, unless there's more discussion on speeding. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business, item A. I will move to refund Elliot M. Ryan an overpayment in the amount of $130.26.
A second.
Seconded by Liza. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I move to refund Elliot M. Ryan an overpayment in the amount of $153.28.
Second.
Seconded by Jim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. I'll move to refund financial service vehicle trust, a certificate of correction in the amount of $140.42.
Second.
Seconded by Liza. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Move on to item C. This is contract, award a contract for the Moose Meadow Road repairs. So at the town meeting, It was held on April 19th. There was a unanimous vote to approve $350,000. If you recall, that amount came from a combination of work, the paving work by contractor, which we will choose tonight, as well as drainage work that will be done by Public Works. And the project, as I had proposed it to both this board and Board of Finance, had approximately a 15% contingency to cover the fluctuating market. And I say approximately 15, I had factored in 15%. They rounded from the 344 and change to 350 at the Board of Finance level. So unless something severe goes wrong, I would anticipate us being able to come in under budget on this. So you see the three proposals in front of you. We have All State Materials Group. And this proposal is estimated and is based on the ton. So we wouldn't know what the final cost was. It's based on slips that would come in during the project. So this came in at about, based on these average numbers, my written one here, it was about $236,000. Again, there's some additional cost. And then if the tons were actually more, Troy, if we needed.
Yeah, so they're doing by
Stone.
they give an estimated tonnage, but if it goes over, they're charging you by the load. So Allstate's doesn't do a package price where the other contractor does a package price where it's said and done. Everything is an extra there with Allstate. They cut the road to make saw cuts. Anything that needed to be hauled out was supposed to be hauled out by the town if there was. So there is a big difference between the two contractors there. If it was, can I recommend?
We'll go through them and
Oh,
then,
yeah.
and then absolutely, I'll ask for your recommendation. So the second is from Pastriac. And that is, so there are two portions. And the total for the entire project is $256,145. This would be reclaiming that road, the fuller length, and then doing the smaller 375-foot piece in between. That is included in all three quotes, both pieces. And this is a fixed cost estimate. So the only thing that would be different here is if the price of liquid asphalt,
And that goes for all of them.
right, changed. So this would be 256, so slightly higher than all states, but fixed cost would not be changing. And the third proposal is from P. Willis Construction, and this was in the amount of $341,100. So this is
that fixed as well?
this
Yes,
is
that would
similar,
be
this is
fixed,
fixed.
yeah.
So this is closer to the cost I had with the 15% contingency fee on either of the first two. So Troy, do you have a
I would recommend that
recommendation?
you use Charlie Pastor as a pavement. I've used him before. He does a wonderful job. I would highly recommend that the board chooses. Yeah, all states is kind of, you're gonna end up going over the original price.
You have experience with all states.
Yeah, and I'm not happy with that.
So Charles Pasternak was very good
Was
at
very good,
estimating
yeah.
and
Estimating,
holding their price.
Yeah, holding that
And
price.
they have a fixed price except for asphalt.
And
That's the commodity they all.
They all have, yeah. So right, the diesel prices are going, everything's fluctuating. So it could go up, but that's what happened with all of them. That could happen with Allstate, that happened with Willis and Pasture.
So I will move to award Charles Pastriac the contract for Moose Meadow paving in the amount of $256,145.
Second.
Seconded by Liza. Any discussion? So again, I just will state this is the paving portion, not the drainage work or supply costs. That is in addition to. So this is how we'll get closer to the 350,000 is with those additions. All right, seeing no other discussion, I will call for a vote on the motion. All those in favor?
Fine.
Aye. Motion carries. So Troy, I know you're planning to meet with the town engineer to go over.
A few things, yep.
The drainage
The
project.
original plan was to put 3 catch basins and 500 feet of under drain. And looking at it, watching it with the rain, the engineer was thinking that we should actually put like between 4 and 5 basins in, depending on what it was. So next Monday, the 9th, he's gonna come out, we're gonna lay everything out. He's done a few things on the GIS computer. So he would just wanted to fit a couple things before I ordered everything. Most everything is in stock. So it's just, it shouldn't be a problem getting it. So there might be a couple extra pieces here and there, but most of the stuff is available. So
Great, look forward to that. I'm sure the folks out on this metal road look forward to this being completed.
if everything goes well, hopefully we'll be starting the beginning of June. That is the plan.
Great. All right.
Did we miss B?
Oh, yeah, we sure did. All right, we're gonna go backwards a little bit. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, item B is tax office end of year preparation. So our revenue collector has requested that we close the tax office to the public on Thursday, June 30th. This would give the opportunity to do the end of the month balancing. Is there benefit to end of the year as well?
I gotta have to do both.
Okay, so end of month and end of year balancing without interruption. Again, they would still be working. We would just be closed to the public. And that would then open up July 1 for the new fiscal year and the new tax collection year. This is a common practice amongst some other municipalities. And so Janice, if you wanted to speak to anything different than.
Yeah, it's beneficial for us, or for me, because if we're open to public bill too, I have a very short window to balance the month, balance the year, get everything ready for the next day. So this at least will give me enough time not to have to rush, cover any unexpected things that come up, as they always do, and be set to go July 1.
So it's one business day?
I'm sorry?
It's just one business day that you're requesting be closed to the public?
And if we make this decision now and potentially moving forward for future years, it gives us enough time to advertise that to people who want to try to get any last minute payments in before the end of the fiscal year. So unless there's opposition, we'll just move forward with that and put that out to the public. So certainly, there's-
Seems very reasonable just to close it,
yeah,
reconcile the books.
it gives them the
The
opportunity.
revenue side of things in order, yeah.
Yeah, it gives them a great opportunity to be prepared to fully engage taxpayers beginning July 1. There are always those that like to come pay right at the beginning of the month. And they trickle all month long, and then we get a lot at the end of July. And so this way, both Janice and her assistant are able to put all of their focus on that because they have taken the time without the public presence.
Start advertising it now.
Yes. Good. All right, thank you. All right, now we're gonna get back on track to item D, non-union employee wages. So as a part of typical practice, our past practice has been to offer the same general wage increase to our non-union staff that's given to union staff in the CBA. This was budgeted for, and the current wage increase is 2.2%. That is retroactive to July 1. So I would like to take formal action. And I would move to provide a 2.2% general wage increase retroactive to July 1, 2021 to current non-union, permanent, full-time and part-time staff and compensated elected officials.
Second,
Any discussion?
Now, this is what we've always done historically.
Historically, yes.
So this isn't any new procedure, so
No, and I'm
I'm
not
just restating that for others who may be listening.
correct. And not,
Wondering.
I'm not sure that I found where there was official action taken. This is typically something that is done at the beginning of a fiscal year. The CBA is done long before, 10 months into the current year. This is certainly an unusual thing, but I think it's important. Again, we did budget for this, so this will, if this passes in favor, then this will require some transfers to the Board of Finance. So I know our business manager is preparing that information. based on this, because we didn't, the dollars are in our budget, they're not in each individual line item, so we need to make those adjustments. And then a retro payment will be made to all employees, including union employees. Any further discussion?
No, we talked about this, I think, through the budgeting and, you know, the planning process, so I'm comfortable with moving forward.
Thank you. Jim, anything further?
Okay with it.
Okay. All right, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. All right, you'll see a lot of our agenda tonight is dictated by the CBA. So that brings us to the personnel policy. The personnel policy needs to be updated to reflect the newly ratified union contract. So in your packet, you should have copies of the pages where proposed changes are. The cover page, it would change the retroactive date to July 1, 2021. The adoption date, if adopted tonight, would read May 2nd. I changed the first selectman name from our previous first selectwoman. The footnote at the bottom of each will now read effective July 1, 2021. And then on page 16, so you can see the footnote there, and then holidays, we've included Juneteenth. And then we did Good Friday or Easter, depending on which day you worked. So that is noted on page 16. The next changes happen in Appendix A for benefit policy for exempt and non-union employees. Under insurance, we've changed the effective dates to match the union contract, the contribution amounts to match the union contract, and the waiver payments also. Either $1,200 for full-time or $900 for part-time to match that contract. And the last item is under vacation leave, where it says 10+ years. It's 1 additional week at a maximum. Prior to that, it read 1 day a year up to a maximum of that 4th week. That matches the contract. Was removed the language that referenced the former elected town clerk. Would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to make the suggested changes to the personnel policy.
Second.
And make it retro to
And
July
yep,
1.
retroactive to July 1st, 2021.
Motion by Liza, seconded by Selectman Bueller. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Certainly at any time, if we wanted to dig into the policies and look at any adjustments, that can be done. I only proposed today changes that were a result of the changing CBA. All right, seeing no other discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, item F. So you should have before you detailed cost on a potential ARPA project regarding employee retention. So I'd like to propose this ARPA project to provide a one-time bonus to current, permanent, and full-time and part-time staff. And I say that because this wouldn't include temporary staff. Since March of 2020, our staff has worked tirelessly to maintain all services to the town. This included a change in working conditions, as well as concern with working with the public amidst a health emergency. Many private businesses are offering sign-on bonuses to attract employees. I would say it's equally as important for us to retain the staff we have and show them our appreciation. So my proposed plan includes all staff prorated for their time here. So what I've outlined, and this is simply my proposal, we can have plenty of discussion regarding this, is $2,000 to department heads and $1,000 to general staff. We also have 2 contracted employees in the plan. I've added that into the cost, certainly for us to discuss. The final rule is clear, that premium pay and any other pay incentives are not afforded to elected officials. So I would propose that we not include that payment in the ARPA dollars, but from surplus, if any, at the end of this fiscal year. The exception I have to the dollar amount you see currently is our business manager. Her work includes the Board of Ed as well as the town, and the influx in state and federal grant dollars has increased the reporting she's had to do, and this has had a large impact on her ability to work within a normal work schedule. The last component is a request on here to allow for a whole staff, town and Board of Education appreciation event. So I've included everyone on this list. You can see the proration amounts depending on how long someone has been here. You will see I left one blank. We certainly could discuss that. So the total at this point on an ARPA request, if we included department head staff and those two contracted staff members, would be $34,250. And then currently, the elected officials sits at $72.50. But I would ask that there be some consideration on that last item.
Okay.
But I want us to discuss this in length before we vote on it, multiple meetings if need be, before we present it to ARPA, where there will be and need to be a robust discussion there and at public hearing.
Where are we right now with, like, what's our kind of running balance at the moment for projects that we've approved already? What's remaining?
I didn't bring that down in front of me. I think when we began the meeting, before we heard the new cost of, and I'm looking at Robin as she sit and Troy as they sit on ARPA with me, that's about 230,000.
It was 220.
230,000, not with no projects attached to them. But we did see the cost, the new cost estimate on the Parks and Rec go from 55,000 to approximately $180,000. And so we've asked for more information on that. We're
Well,
not
that's
ready to
tripled.
move that. It is. It's significantly different. So we didn't move that to public hearing today. The commission wants to hear more information specifically from our town engineer on that. So there are funds and there are certainly lots of funds that have not been allocated. They've been requested, but not actually allocated at this point. Okay. Your thoughts, comments?
So the ARPA employee bonus, as I
Proposal.
see proposal, the employee retention.
Look,
proposal. Let's go with that. I'm okay with that from the employee standpoint. I get more uncomfortable as I go down the list because I'm not sure contracted staff. I mean, that's why you have contracts.
Mhm.
You contract for things. And I can't recall any personal experience with contracted staff getting bonuses. It's usually worked into the contract somehow. And I have even less comfort with the elected officials. Only because, we're elected officials, I don't,
Yeah.
there's not a retention.
You are correct.
So, I mean, you don't like it, don't run.
I will tell you again, I broke everyone out, that there needs to be
I'm glad you
discussion.
did, because
So-
in my mind, I looked at the top half of the sheet. No brainer, right?
Right.
Those are people who work here every day. You're trying to solve a problem.
Sure.
You know,
And my thought process behind both the two contracted, they're both department heads in the building office and land use departments. And so we certainly have to give both sides of that issue consideration. I struggled with this, but I want to include everything in the plan so we have a full picture if we move in that direction. I'd be hard pressed, Jim, not to say that the work done by some of those elected officials was above and beyond what anyone thought they were signing up for when they ran for an office. And I will take myself out of the equation. The work in those early months that our registrars of voters had to do to put themselves in situations where no one was sure what the public health situation was going to look like. I struggle with leaving them out of that, but we cannot there's nothing to say we couldn't use the revenue loss category and ARPA for these funds. But the final rule is pretty vocal in the other pay incentive categories that I would not feel comfortable ever proposing ARPA dollars for, which is why my suggestion is a twofold. The majority from ARPA and then consideration, at least for some of these elected officials. The countless hours that were put in by some, it was tremendous.
So I would say for our contracted staff, because they're contracted because we share them, right?
Only our building official.
Okay.
So we contract him from the town of Bolton.
Right.
Mike D'Amato does contract work in multiple towns,
Mhm.
so.
So I would be in favor of them. I mean, I think maybe it's just us is the concern. Really, voting, I do feel uncomfortable voting to give myself a bonus.
Same here.
So, but I would look at like, yeah, the other elected officials on this list and agree that they have gone above and beyond. And, you know, and in many cases, we have asked like Lori Semperbon, Christina Sathis, and Suzanne, I mean, they all sort of serve as staff members in a lot of ways, even though they're elected officials. So I would be in favor for them. And again, that's with the stipulation of it being at the end of the fiscal year. if
Right,
there's
with-
money
with
left, if there's
surplus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the above is, I think the goal and the intent of ARPA, or one of the goals, right, is would be for that. But yeah, I would not want to vote for myself to get a $1,000 bump or, you know, bonus payment. I'm okay without that. I mean, I'd love it, but I'm uncomfortable doing that myself.
Well, you can see the last line there, it's included on the list, but I've included none, so that there could be absolute discussion and open meeting. And for the public who are paying attention to this, the last line on elected officials is myself. So
So what's your point today? We're just discussing?
my point is for us to discuss it.
Yeah,
Look,
we're not
if
gonna
there's,
take
if both
any
of you
action at
say
this point.
we can or we cannot, we can, you know, if we're not gonna take action, let's have some discussion so we know what direction. Do you want me to look at different numbers? What other kind of proposals? Are you in favor of something of this and want me to move it forward for discussion at ARPA? That's where we're at. Is
So can I ask just a clarified
Yes.
question? So department heads was just sort of the starting rate was 2,000 for
Yes.
department head, base 1,000 for
Mhm.
staff. And then it's prorated.
correct. So, and I did it over looking at a 2-year period of time. And broke those starting rates into 4 6-month periods. And you'll see each of the smaller amounts fall into that. Most of these folks started with us August, September, October. And so that's why you see them in the smaller amounts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of the concept for, you know, the staff, department heads and staff. But I do think it's worth a little bit more discussion and thought, as well as some firm numbers from where we are with ARPA and what our
Yeah.
understanding is of what we think is to come.
Yeah, it's either 220 or 230. And I don't know what else anyone else will propose. That is, you know, yet to be determined.
Yeah.
So, you know, to put a proposal in does not mean one will move forward with the amounts that have been requested. And there'll be 7 items on the next public hearing. And again, all that means is that then they could have action taken on after we get them public, not that they will.
So our contractor staff are department heads.
They, correct. One is the building department and the other is land use.
I would be in favor for everybody but us.
When you say us, you mean all three of us?
Yeah, the three of us.
I'm still uncomfortable with contractor staff. Contract.
Mhm.
I'd rather
Well, they all have a contract, really. It's just, it's the mechanism through which we hire them is a little bit different
different.
because it's shared
Yeah.
services, because we can't afford to have one of our own. We have to share.
If we're sharing, maybe we can prorate it. If we have a half a person, maybe we should get half a department.
That's a good question. Is it, so it's just prorated by duration of employment, not hours?
Correct.
That's what they were.
Correct. That's how I started this.
Yeah.
And so then we have more discussion.
I think it's fair to also look at the hours that they work. Because if you have somebody who works full-time, 40 hours a week and has been like, had to purchase the premium Spectrum internet package so that they could connect when they were home and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, I think those are the, to me, that's what this money is justifies.
I will say our staff was home for very little.
Right, but that was just an
Very
example,
little. Yeah.
you know, or like
Yeah.
using personal equipment or, you know,
Sure.
buying their, but you know what I'm talking about, like ways in which they've had to accommodate, you know, being in person when everybody else was remote and figuring out what to do with their kids while it was school hours, you know, so.
So we could change that base for contracted staff in half. Would you be more comfortable with that?
I'd be more comfortable with that.
Again, my take on it was I started with department heads and they fell into that, so.
And you remove selectmen.
For now, yeah. So that's a separate conversation. So if we move forward with everything else and you ask me to put in a, you know, we vote, I would like us to vote if we take action to move forward with an ARPA proposal, it would be $32,250. Currently. The way it stands. And we have, the only vacancy I didn't add was the assessor. That is a vacant position now. I don't anticipate being filled till July 1, so I would think we'd leave it as is.
I would leave it as is, so.
Yeah, I mean, all state employees are getting these lump sum pays for the ways in which they had to extend and overextend themselves during COVID. I mean, I think there's plenty of precedent for it. So I'm in support of the concept.
And this allows us to recognize our staff for the work that they've done, at the same time not carry on these dollar amounts in future budget cycles. So this won't increase. This is a one-time bonus, so it does not affect their salaries.
Are we voting on it or
We
what's
need a
the-
motion before we.
So I'll make a motion to, well, we're not approving it. We're forwarding it to.
Oh, well, you can, we are approving the ARPA proposal.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the ARPA employee bonus proposal to move on to the ARPA commission.
for a second.
That's as we.
The
discussed.
ARPA is only from the elected officials up.
Yeah.
The elected officials
included.
are not considered in an ARPA proposal. So I think there should still be room to have conversation there. All right, so the motion is to approve the ARPA employee bonus proposal. You accept a friendly amendment of $32,250.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Aye. We can continue the discussion of elected officials as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. And I will put in an ARPA proposal. It probably won't be heard by ARPA until their June meeting. So, and that just means it'll be received and heard, discussion. Yeah. All right, that brings us to item G, town meeting discussion.
Yes, a couple of things, just things that jumped out at me at the town meeting. The CIP summary seemed to confuse a lot of people. There wasn't enough of them there. Or that nasty spreadsheet. And I've sat on CIP for a while, so I can kind of read it. And I know enough to look at what column affects, the budget. But I think if we can have a simpler format that just says, well, here's the budget impact. And yes, we have all these leases that we're paying or bonds that we're paying. Might make it easier for residents to understand how's this going to impact me. You just have all that stuff too, if you want to dig in there and peel out all those details, and you got that report to read and all that, but I think having some type of simplified spreadsheet would make it easier for people.
Like a cover sheet type of thing.
A cover sheet, maybe our business manager could develop something or has something that's maybe handy, maybe she has something in her office that's a useful tool for herself or something like that. I don't really think we need to reinvent anything, but if there's something that's already available.
So what I will say is what's voted on at the town meeting for CIP is the actual plan. So that whole document is presented because that's what they're voting on, and there is text. So certainly the CIP chair does that work. And so the chair was there to speak to that, and there were other members of CIP there. I can understand where somebody who, if you have not followed the process, the spreadsheet can be daunting. I know at one point I suggested people read the text. That explains to you what the projects are and where the funding is coming from. I can share that information along to the CIP committee that maybe in future years, maybe just a simple explanatory text, but I think, in my opinion, the CIP chair did a very good job of explaining the items that were in that plan, and what was actually being spent and the dollars that were being spent out of the budget that is to be voted on tomorrow. But we certainly can share that at CIP.
I support that suggestion 100%. I mean, even I still look at it. Anybody with any neurodivergency will look at that thing and be completely overwhelmed. And even I still look at it and can hardly make heads or tails out of some of the columns.
There are times I wish we didn't include the spreadsheet because that's
Yeah.
our tool.
Yeah,
And the plan is the rest of the document, that the plan is there. Oftentimes, I think we should take the spreadsheet out because the spreadsheet
it's
is
overwhelming.
It is
Yes.
overwhelming.
I think I'm not suggesting remove it. It could be
No,
Yeah.
it's something at the end, right? It's appendix, but having something to summarize it, maybe a summary spreadsheet, a key.
Yeah.
Here's the key financial impact of the budget or to the bottom line. I mean, Mike McCuba did a good job of saying, here's what we focus on for Board of Finance. And I think that's important.
So what I will say, Jim, is the impact in the budget is actually gone over on multiple occasions at this board and at Board of Finance.
I know.
And that document, if folks read the document that's presented, does have that. So
I know. I'm
we
just.
can work. I don't
know.
know that a simplified spreadsheet will make it any easier. I think adding a second spreadsheet.
There were residents saying there weren't enough copies, and I'm just
Mhm.
bringing that to everybody's attention. I think it's worth discussing right here, and maybe next time we can do better on printing copies and organizing information.
and I think it's important for accessibility of the information and to have the simplified versions. So, I mean, I don't have any opposition to, encouraging more simplified documents to be shared with the public, because, I mean, we can't have the expectation that everybody that comes to vote on the budget is gonna have attended all of these meetings to really understand the ins and outs of a very complicated budget that even 6 years in, I still have to, I don't know how many years it's been, but a lot. And, I'm still like, every year have to refresh myself and struggle a little bit with following the math. So I think that's a pretty sensible suggestion.
Pass that along to the commission.
The other thing I want to bring up is just the risk management of having a public hearing, a town meeting, a referendum with minimal gap of time in between them. We regularly have snowstorms in April. That's when we have these hearings and all that. Building in an extra week or two of buffer in case you get an occasional snowstorm, or in case you actually go to a town meeting and someone says, hey, I want something, the townspeople vote and do something and say, hey, we want to change it, or we want to, you have to build in a little bit of buffer or flexibility so you can react to that.
So I don't have my budget documents in front of me. There are statutes, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, that especially between the budget hearing and the annual town meeting, I believe is no more than 2 weeks. Or no,
It's no more than,
their timeframes.
yeah, it's basically 5 days of warning a town meeting. Of when the selectmen call the town meeting to the town
Yeah,
meeting,
but-
so it's 5 days, is that what?
Yeah, but there's so I have it and Donna has written it out for us. There's actually some statutory language on some of the items. We have chosen as a town to hold our annual town, our budget referendum at the same time as Region 19.
Right.
And that is set by statute.
Yes,
So their annual meeting is tonight, and then the referendum has to be tomorrow. So we use that date and we work backwards to fill in our calendar. And that's why we use the 2-week gap. There's some language that if you go longer than that, it could be problematic. And we can take another look at it. We have to look at the budget ordinance at the same time and the language there. And the statutes, we can take a look at it along with Board of Finance, but these
I would
dates,
do that. We have enough, we have weather events in April. Now, it
Well-
doesn't happen a lot, and it almost never happens in May.
so, but I'm curious as why there hasn't been anything that's affected this year, or something that's suggesting they not be in the same time frame.
It's just good risk management. Give yourself enough time in case something happens. And maybe we're already doing that. I'm happy to take a look at statutes with our clerk.
I would encourage you to, because even your time as the chair of the Board of Finance, these statutes were in place. We had a budget ordinance in place.
I know we lucked out and didn't have any weather issues. so-
We didn't have any this year either. So did we have, I don't recall anything that's affected these meetings being held.
We happen to, again, I'm just stating from a risk management point of view. This is what I do for a living.
we do
Robin?
have an ordinance in place for the annual budget as well, and it's been revamped a couple times, but I believe between that and because we're bound to Region 19 with what Eric has said, the May 1st, I believe it's always.
It's always the
The
Monday.
first Monday in May, so the
May.
first Tuesday after
Yeah,
the first
We are
Monday.
bound to that as well, because that I think goes with statute as well. So it's just basically, we take that date of that Monday in May, and we kind of.
We go back
base
2 weeks,
on-
back 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we kind of just base the referendum on that and go back to.
An issue also came up on paper ballots.
Mhm.
And it was pointed out that, in normal Robert's Rules of Order, I believe you can allow for paper ballots. So is the issue the warning of the,
So you heard our registrar of voters and our town clerk say they need to be warned. Our town clerk is here. We've had discussions of this since this came up and are looking into it. If you don't have paper ballots, you certainly cannot hold a paper ballot vote. So we did not have any paper ballots. Therefore, there's reason number one, at that meeting could not have happened, not prepared. And two, in the past, it has always been warned. That has been the practice. And Robin has been looking into whether or not that is a requirement. In the past, we've done paper ballots, the ballots have been prepared, and it has been warned as a ballot by paper.
I would like to make a motion then that we consider both options when we have future town meetings, that we be available for either option should it come up.
So I'll let Robin speak to, I'll let Robin speak to the work that we've been doing since the town meeting.
Because that had happened, let me back up. So obviously, this was my first annual town budget meeting as town clerk, but I have been in the process and in the works in the past 13 years. But I do know that the past times that we, the town, had prepared, like come to a town meeting prepared with a ballot is because we expected either it would be controversial or well, mostly controversial. And perhaps people would be afraid to vote the way they wanted to vote. And we, the town clerk at the time, I believe, would bring a paper ballot. One that was the, I don't know if it was even the gun range, but I know one had to do with the fire department and maybe the school building. But that's,
And there was-
two that come to mind.
There was a Region 19.
Oh, yes, and there was a Region 19
Appointment,
vote,
yes.
appointment to fill a vacancy. So it's just, you know, especially something like that, it could hurt feelings that, you know.
I get it, yeah.
So that's why they came prepared. When it was suggested to vote for the CIP, by paper ballot, we didn't have anything. I had nothing prepared, for anybody to write, and you can't just have somebody write yes or no on paper, because it's nothing uniform. With that being said, you know, we also have got, I just went what was passed done in the past, so I didn't know that you could do that, but I since then have been discussing with the registrars and assistant town clerk to get something, so we'll have them, okay, you guys want to vote? It's, you know, suggested to vote by paper, we will hand them out. But with that being said, we would have to formally check people in or just make sure that the people who are there get the ballots. But, you know, there were 3 of us there at that meeting, sitting up front between myself, the first selectman, and the moderator, and we knew that everyone had basically everybody in attendance covered. So I think we can do it that way too. But I would suggest if we do the paper ballots from now on, that we have a formal check-in process.
So
So that gives me to my last point about elector verification, because that by statute, you can't just have anybody show up even by voice vote. You have to check and make sure they are a valid elector of the town of Wellington. So I would strongly recommend that we follow that. That's per statute. That we check people off, even if you do, that should be a matter of practice, no matter what you do.
Right, but.
And I think the option of having.
No, so I question why, so at this meeting, did you find that to be a problem? I want to understand, there's a lot of,
Oh, I'm
reasons coming
new
up.
on the whole thing.
you're
If
new,
I'm
you're new
looking
to this,
at
but you're not
every
new to
single-
town meeting. Was
I'm
there
not.
issue at town meeting that you thought something shouldn't be happening? So the practice has been decades, right? So there was no illegal meeting that happened. There's been no, you can shake your head, we can disagree. There
I can
was no
shake my head.
illegal action that happened. Town meeting has happened this way. We've been having discussions, and Robin has started reaching out to other towns to see how they run this. The only time in my time that we have checked people in was a paper balloted vote and the town meeting, which we had people check in for contact tracing purposes. Other than that, we've never used an official method. And I've been in, before I sat in the seat, I've been in some really large town meetings where no one checked us in. What Robin has found from other town clerks is everyone does it a little bit different. The statute tells you you have to determine, it doesn't tell you the means by which you determine.
Yes.
And what we found, not unlike ours, small towns typically know who's in the room. And so if we change that process, that requires a registrar of voters to be at every town meeting
In an assessor.
and an assessor with the grand list book. So I'm gonna tell you that they're all gonna be looking for some compensation to be now at every town meeting. I'm not saying I don't think it's necessary, but I can tell you at this meeting, between the three of us sitting at the table, we knew who everyone was. There were 2 people in the audience who were not electors and they did not vote. They were interested parties with something on the agenda, members of our fire department who are not residents, and they did not vote. So we're, conscious of these things. I have reached out to our town attorney to see whether or not the information that was provided to us that we had to warn for balloted questions is something we have to do, or if it's just a practice that had been happening, and that was the understanding. When I proposed the town meeting that included the school building committee creation, that was by ballot, and it was warned after discussion with the then town clerk and the registrar of voters that needed, in order to do a paper ballot, we had to, in fact, warn it. So we did that in that case. And, again, at this last one, without a ballot, we couldn't have taken one. And so I can tell you, we were not prepared with ballots.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Robin.
The other thing too is with that particular meeting, all town meetings are considered a special meeting, special town meeting, that's how it's more. So, I was also thinking going with the statute, statute 28 or something like that, is that special meetings can't veer off of the topic of, and you're not really veering off of the topic, but it's how you're voting. But I really don't think it applies, but I wanted to make sure that, it's like the way you vote with the warning of it and stuff, so. But
So I reached out to the town attorney, so we
Yeah.
can make sure, as we look at all the different ways, we can make some adjustments to make sure we follow any statutory language and nothing gets missed. So,
And I'll be happy to accommodate with, paper ballots.
if that's determined.
As long as it's.
As long as we don't have to warn it. Otherwise, I would probably be opposed to warning it on every single question, every single time. It's an additional cost on both ways, significant in some way, but something, food for thought.
And I don't have any opposition to doing anything that makes something more formalized, more accurate, and to ensure the integrity of the process. So there's nothing within your statement that I disagree with at all in terms of the validity of checking people in. All of that seems like reasonable, sensible process. And, if I would not be opposed to moving in that direction, I think what we have been doing has been working for us. But again, knowing that it adds extra costs and extra time and attention during the meeting. If it was something we wanted to consider doing, I would consider that, like having a discussion about that. So, I don't think, it's nothing I would be opposed to entertaining or just discussing for our future meetings. Yeah,
I will bring it up again at our future meetings. I think process is important. I think that integrity of that process. And Robin, you're still waiting to hear back from your side, from the Secretary of State.
No, I think
No.
Erica was reaching
You're
out. with
reaching out to the
town attorney, Yeah.
so.
I've been looking at the statutes, and statutes can sometimes be gray, like just basically saying.
And intentionally so, because the towns are so different, and it's hard to make policy for a town of 5,100 that also works for a town of 150,000, right? So, and that's where it's, we get our own discretion. So, again, open to the conversation with the understanding that everything we do to complicate the process adds additional cost, adds accessibility issues. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Anything else on town meetings?
Last one on school roofs. I know we've talked about this at nauseam. And what the 2 phases where it was approved, and approved again the second time. And then you guys know that, then the funding was canceled and all that stuff. There seems to be, I just think, and I'm thinking in terms of closure, there's gotta be a better way to get back to the townspeople and say, okay, here's what happened. You know, maybe that gets followed up in a subsequent town meeting of, this is what happened, this is the result of that. There still seem people are not getting the message or getting a jumbled message. We're not hearing it. It just seems we could do a better job of closing that out.
All right, so I'm gonna take a stab at this. The mixed message comes from our former former selectman amongst others, who at town meeting made the suggestion that those who were in charge of the project went out and found themselves someone who would then cancel the project. The Board of Education had a project that they put before the town. It went through the process. The Board of Education's project was canceled by the state. They have taken this up. They have touched on this many times. I don't know that there's any more confusion. The Board of Education has touched on the topic. The more people who like to muddy the water and insinuate that there was some negligence done or some intentional harm done, that to me is where people don't understand or want to continue the conversation. There was every intent by the town to move forward with a school roof project. Went before the town to get funding, and the state and the head of OSCGR at the time removed that funding. The town, at town meeting, our townspeople voted on spending that included a significant reimbursement. Our town manager indicated then that we did not have the funding to pay for it in whole. I would say if the Board of Education wants to once again propose that project and go back through the process, they'd be asking for the town to spend the entire dollar amount with zero funding from the state, because we know at this point, the state, as far as we know, has no intent on continuing that project, so long as we have the school building committee in the manner that it is. This is not a project from the Board of Selectmen. This is a Board of Education matter, and the superintendent has put out explanatory text at multiple occasions.
Okay.
But I don't think it helps when statements, factually incorrect statements and inflammatory statements are made to suggest otherwise. That folks went out and found themselves, I believe was exactly what former Selectman Blessington said, found themselves a bureaucrat. That is not what happened.
So
What
I'm just-
happened
I'm
is,
not
and
reacting
remember,
to Selectman
I am.
Blessington's comments. I'm reacting to residents who showed up at town meeting and said, hey, this roof thing, we didn't know this was going on.
Right, and I'm
Why was
reacting to the
it-
actual comments that were made at town meeting that were incorrect. They were addressed at that point, at that town meeting, by the chairman of the Board of Finance, who is well aware of where we stand. I think had the superintendent been in attendance, he would have spoke to the same thing. This is not a matter for this board at this time. There is no project, there are no funds from the state. And I know from the Board of Ed's standpoint, they have shared multiple occasions that the roofs are not leaking. They did put a patch on it. And as we move forward with whatever will or will not come from the school building committee, they will have to take up the topic again. If no renovated project happens or no new school project happens, they're going to have to determine the life expectancy of the roofs as they stand. But that is a matter for the Board of Education.
I have nothing else.
Anything else on town meetings?
I was sick and unable to attend, so no perspectives.
Present to speak. If you are present to speak, please state your name for the record and ask that you limit yourself to 2 minutes. Is there anyone present to speak? Yes.
John Blessington, 29 Mason Road. I stand by what I said at that meeting. You're saying that what I'm saying is incorrect. I'm saying that what you're saying is incorrect. Let people figure that out, but I'm not very happy with, I'm wrong, you're right, period. That's a matter of opinion in both our cases.
Anyone else present to speak? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Matt Clark, 42 Court Latham Road, Wilmington, Connecticut. So I'd like to see someone on the Board of Selectmen make a motion and have a discussion about having public meetings for the town of Wellington in the evening and not during business hours when the public can't attend. There's various, the ARPA board, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, CIP, I don't know, maybe they have it. There's various subcommittee meetings and things like that. So I'd like to see that, so that we could attend. I'd like to commend the board on a very good contract. I was involved with the contract with the teachers. So I thought, 3 years at 2.6%, I think it was, that the teachers were getting was good. And I have to say that this contract that you guys have seems wonderful. So good job, everyone. And I'd like to see if also if we can talk about some no dumping signs. I've heard many times the different dead end roads in Wellington have dumping problems where people dump crap, junk. And maybe we can put a sign up there that says no dumping. A little camera. It's
The little
it's
fake ones from
yeah.
wish.com. that was
Yeah,
like
I
a
mean,
dollar.
Can't put up a camera sign, you're not
Yeah.
gonna put up a camera.
I'm
we
kidding,
can put up
I'm
cameras,
kidding.
but we can put up a sign, we're watching you or something, I don't know, but it's cool, we have a beautiful town and people dump stuff on our roads, so that would be helpful as well. I didn't go to the town meeting, so I don't know, I have no clue, so I was working at the time, I couldn't go. Peter Tinchin was very mad at me for not going, but I didn't go. I would say that it should be practice that all meetings have paper ballots. We're a little tiny town, everybody knows everybody, and we should be able to vote in private. And that's why that's there. And my interpretation of the statute for the check-in process for town meetings is that you have to check people in. I'm not a lawyer, I read it, that's what it seems like to me.
Anyone else present to speak? I see none, I will take oh, sorry, yes, ma'am.
Just quickly.
Oh, so
um,
identify yourself for the
Oh,
record.
Robin Campbell, sorry, Robin Campbell's back row. Regarding the item F for the ARPA project, first of all, thank you, that is wonderful, but I just wanted to recommend that if you guys discuss the elected officials, to please consider the registrar of voters who had to in person handle primary and a major presidential election, who were probably out of their comfort zone, as well as your first selectman who was thrown in the fire, who I'm sure you all know, worked closely with her when we claimed the world shut down. She still had to go and do a lot of things and be out there and put herself out there. So just wanted to discuss that.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak? All right, I'm going to take a point of privilege, and I want the record, Kelsey, to show that I vehemently disagree with former Selectman Blessington, and there was no town official who sought out a bureaucrat to cancel the roof project. I think it's important that the facts actually be on the record. Good and welfare. I had hoped to have a truancy report, but that did not come through today. Mobile food share is every other Wednesday. It will be here next Wednesday, May 11th, from 11 to 11:30. That is open to everyone. It is regional. You need show no proof of why you're here. And thank our mostly seniors who come out and volunteer every other week to make sure that folks who have a need receive that. If you can, always continue to support our small businesses and restaurants. The budget referendum is tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. here in the town office building upstairs. And as a reminder, the May 16th Board of Selectmen regular meeting has been canceled. If we so choose to and need another meeting, we'll call a special meeting. With that, I will make a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss a personal matter and invite the Public Works Director.
A second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Stop the recording. We'll wait for everyone else to leave.